My name is Natalie Parker and I am 32 years old. You'd think by this point in my life I'd be used to the way my parents treat me compared to my siblings. You'd think that after 3 decades of being the middle child, the invisible one, I'd have grown numb to being overlooked. But birthdays still sting the most. Maybe because, deep down, no matter how many times you're let down, a part of you still hopes your family will show up for you. That they'll choose you for once. That they'll remember you're just as important as the others. This year I wanted it to be different. I'd been planning my 32nd birthday for months. Nothing extravagant, just a cozy hall I rented near my apartment, decorated with fairy lights, a dessert table and a playlist of all my favorite songs. I invited close friends, coworkers who had become like family and of course my parents and siblings. I thought, maybe if I made the effort they'd see how much this meant to me. My younger brother Ethan texted me right away confirming he'd be there. He's 28, quiet and usually stuck in the background like me, but at least he understands. My older sister Sophia didn't respond for days. When she finally did, it was a half-hearted, "I'll see if I can make it." Typical Sophia. Sophia's always been the golden child. At 35, she's still treated like the delicate princess of the family. My parents, Robert and Linda, cater to her every whim. If Sophia sneezes, my mom is already running to grab tissues and herbal tea. If she complains about work stress, my dad offers to pay for a weekend getaway. Meanwhile, if I ever mention being tired from my job as a project manager, they tell me to toughen up. But I kept telling myself, this year will be different. Has to be. I spent the night before baking cookies and arranging gift bags for guests. I even had a little surprise slideshow prepared. Pictures from my childhood, funny clips with my friends, and a few of my travel moments. The morning of my birthday I woke up to silence. No "happy birthday" text from my parents. No phone call. Nothing. Ethan had already sent me a sweet message at midnight, but from mom and dad? Not a word. Till I brushed it off. Maybe they were waiting to surprise me at the party. I got dressed early, slipping into a navy blue dress that made me feel confident. I styled my hair, put on a bit of makeup and even bought myself fresh flowers. Because if there's one thing I've learned, it's that sometimes you have to celebrate yourself, even when others don't. Around noon I got a ping on my phone. Excited, I picked it up expecting a cheerful "we're on our way" from mom. Instead it was a photo on Instagram. Sophia. In a plush white robe. A glass of champagne in hand. Caption read, "Sparkles, spa day with mom and dad. Best way to relax. Self-care comes first, woman getting massage bottle with popping cork sparkles." My stomach dropped. I stared at the picture, my hands shaking. My parents were sitting beside her in matching robes, smiling like they didn't have a care in the world. My mom even had cucumbers over her eyes. My dad had his arm around Sophia, grinning at the camera. On my birthday. I blinked a few times thinking maybe I'd misunderstood. Maybe they were doing this before coming to my party? But the caption said, "all day pampering." They weren't coming. They'd chosen Sophia. Again. All the air seemed to rush out of the room. I sank down onto my bed, the bouquet of flowers I'd bought for myself slipping from my lap. I could almost hear my younger self whispering, "See? You're not enough. You'll never be enough for them." I wanted to scream, to call them and demand, "How could you do this to me? On my birthday?" But deep down I already knew their answer. It was just one day. "Your sister needed us more. You'll understand someday." But not this time. I sat there for a long moment staring at that photo, the anger and sadness mixing until it burned in my chest. But then something shifted. If they didn't value me enough to show up, then why was I wasting tears over them? I stood up, wiped my face and looked at myself in the mirror. "Happy birthday, Natalie," I whispered. "This is your day. Don't let them ruin it." And with that I grabbed my bag, picked up the cake I'd ordered and headed to the hall. The place looked beautiful when I arrived. My friends had already started arriving, laughing, hugging me and handing me small gifts. They didn't care about status or favoritism. They were here because they wanted to celebrate me. As the night went on, the room filled with warmth. Laughter echoed off the walls, music played, and for the first time in a long while I felt seen. Truly seen. At one point Ethan slipped in quietly, carrying a wrapped gift. He hugged me tight and whispered, "Happy birthday, Nat. I'm sorry about mom and dad." That's when I knew he'd seen the spa post too. I smiled through the lump in my throat and whispered back, "It's fine. They made their choice. I'm making mine. And in that moment I decided, I wouldn't beg for their attention anymore. I wouldn't sit around hoping to be chosen. If my parents wanted Sophia to be their only daughter, fine. But tonight I was going to celebrate like never before, with the people who actually cared. What I didn't know then was that this choice, this tiny spark of rebellion, would change everything in my family forever. The night of my birthday had been wonderful in its own way. My friends stayed late, laughing and dancing under strings of lights. Even Ethan, usually so quiet, cracked a few jokes that made everyone laugh. I remember standing in the middle of it all, glass of champagne in my hand, thinking, so this is what it feels like to be surrounded by people who truly care. But when the music faded and the guests left, I was alone again in my apartment. Streamers clung half-heartedly to the walls, balloons floated toward the ceiling, and the leftover cake sat on the counter. I sat on the couch, the quiet pressing in. My phone was still silent. My parents hadn't called. Not even a, "Happy birthday, we'll see you tomorrow." I stared at the black screen, waiting for it to light up. It never did. By morning there was finally a message. My mom's name blinked at the top of the screen. "Happy birthday, sweetheart. Sorry we couldn't make it last night. Sophia had been stressed, so we thought a spa day would help. You understand, right?" I read it 3 times, each word twisting the knife deeper. Understand? I had spent weeks planning, cooking, cleaning, making sure everyone would have a good time. And they couldn't even be bothered to show up because Sophia needed a massage? My thumbs hovered over the keyboard. 100 comebacks burned in my head, but I deleted them all. Finally I typed, "I see. Don't worry about it." I hit send and tossed the phone on the couch, hot tears stinging my eyes. The next few days, Sophia's social media exploded with spa pictures. She posted boomerangs of champagne glasses clinking, selfies with a face mask, shots of her lounging in a white robe. The captions were salt in the wound. "Best day ever, 2 hearts, so thankful for the people who really show up for me. Family is everything, sparkles." I wanted to scream, but I held it in. I went to work, smiled at my coworkers, came home and told myself not to care. Still the ache wouldn't go away. That Sunday was family dinner. The tradition had started decades ago, meant to keep us close. But for years, it had really been Sophia show night. She always had the best stories, the most dramatic tales, the loudest laugh. My parents soaked it up. Ethan and I usually sat quietly, fading into the background. I considered skipping. Part of me thought, why put myself through this again? But another part, the stubborn child inside me, still hoped my parents might apologize. That they'd see how much their absence had hurt me. So I went. When I walked through the door, the smell of pot roast filled the air. Ethan was already there, shoulders hunched, scrolling his phone at the table. My dad was carving meat, my mom bustling in the kitchen, and Sophia. Well, Sophia looked like she'd stepped out of a magazine ad, wearing a designer dress and perfectly styled hair. "Nat," my dad said with exaggerated cheer, like nothing had happened. "How was your birthday?" "Sorry we missed it, kiddo." "Yeah, sorry," my mom added, not even looking guilty. She was too busy spooning mashed potatoes into a bowl. You know how badly Sophia needed a day off. We just couldn't say no. Sophia smirked. "It was amazing. Honestly, Nat, you should try it sometime. Maybe you wouldn't look so stressed." The fork in Ethan's hand clinked against his plate. He looked at her sharply. "Really? That's what you're going with? Mocking her after you stole her birthday?" Sophia flicked her hair over her shoulder. "Stole? Please. Nat had her little party. She survived. Her little party." My grip tightened around the wine bottle I'd brought. I forced a smile, my voice steady. "You're right, Sophia. I did survive. In fact, I had an amazing night, with people who actually wanted to be there." The room went still. My mom's eyes narrowed. My dad cleared his throat and muttered something about everyone needing to calm down. Sophia just rolled her eyes. "Ugh. Sensitive much," she muttered. I bit my tongue until the metallic taste of blood filled my mouth. The rest of dinner was unbearable. Conversation after conversation circled back to Sophia. Her boss loved her, her apartment was too small but so chic, her boyfriend might propose soon. My parents nodded and laughed, glowing with pride. Whenever Ethan or I spoke, they offered distracted moms before redirecting back to Sophia. By dessert, I felt invisible. When I finally excused myself, Ethan followed me outside. "You okay?" he asked softly. I let out a bitter laugh. Define okay. He shoved his hands in his pockets. I don't get it. You do everything right. You've worked so hard. And they still act like Sophia's the only one that matters. Don't you ever just want to walk away? I looked at him for a long moment. The porch light cast shadows across his face. Ethan, I whispered, I think I'm getting close. The weeks that followed were a slow unraveling. My parents stopped calling me first. Days then weeks passed without a word. Meanwhile, Sophia filled her feed with new handbags, dinners, spa trips, always with Mom by her side. Dad even posted a long message about how proud he was of Sophia's dedication at work. I had just gotten a promotion myself, but he hadn't mentioned it once. I decided to stop reaching out. If they wanted distance, I'd give it to them. The silence was deafening. One Sunday I skipped dinner altogether. Instead I stayed home in pajamas, curled up with a book and a glass of wine. I told myself it would hurt less if I didn't go. My phone never rang. Not once. Later, scrolling Instagram, I saw Sophia's post, a group photo from dinner. My parents, Sophia, her boyfriend, and even a couple of family friends. Caption read, "Family night. Couldn't ask for better people in my life." 2 hearts sparkles. I wasn't in the picture. I wasn't even tagged. It was like I didn't exist. For a long time I just stared at the screen. My chest felt hollow. But then strangely I also felt lighter. Because if I wasn't really part of their family anymore, then I didn't owe them my loyalty. Not anymore. 2 weeks later I decided to give them one last chance. I showed up at Sunday dinner determined to stay calm. But the moment I walked in, Sophia launched into some dramatic story about how her boss had been so impressed with her latest project that he hinted at a promotion. "Oh, Sophia, that's wonderful," my mom gushed. "We always knew you were destined for big things. Isn't she amazing, Natalie?" I forced a smile and sipped my water. "Sure." Sophia leaned back, smirking. "Don't be jealous, Nat. Not everyone can shine." Ethan nearly choked on his drink. "Unbelievable," he muttered. "Ethan," my dad said sharply, "enough. You both could learn a thing or two from your sister." That was it. The final straw. I set my glass down with a quiet thud. My hands didn't shake, though my heart was racing. "You're right," I said softly. "I have learned a thing or two from her." The table quieted. My mom's fork hovered midair. Sophia smirked, thinking I was about to compliment her. "I've learned that no matter what I do, it won't ever be enough for this family," I continued. "And I've learned that maybe it's time I stopped trying." The silence was so thick you could cut it with a knife. I stood up. "Where are you going?" my mom demanded. "Home," I said simply. "To people who actually value me." I turned and walked out, my footsteps echoing against the hardwood floor. "Nat, wait." Ethan called, chasing me into the driveway. His face was pale, his voice desperate. "If you leave now," he said, lowering his voice, "things will never go back to normal." I looked him dead in the eye. "Good." Then I got in my car, started the engine and drove away, leaving the glow of the Parker house shrinking in my rearview mirror. What I didn't know then was that my choice to walk away that night would set everything in motion. My parents' world, Sophia's golden pedestal, the fragile family image they clung to, it was all about to come crashing down. And when it did, none of us would ever be the same. The night I drove away from that dinner, I felt both terrified and liberated. Terrified because I knew I'd crossed a line, one I couldn't uncross. Liberated because for the first time in my life, I had chosen myself over my family's approval. The silence that followed was deafening. Days turned into weeks. No calls, no texts. My parents didn't check in. Sophia didn't send her usual smug selfies. Even Ethan, though he texted me privately, admitted he couldn't bring my name up around them without sparking arguments. At first, the loneliness hit me hard. I'd sit in my apartment staring at old family photos. Birthdays, Christmas mornings, vacations where I was half hidden in the background while Sophia smiled front and center. I wondered if I had made a mistake. But then something shifted. My friends rallied around me. They invited me to dinners, movie nights, even casual coffee runs. They started saying things like, "You're basically family to us." And for once I believed it. Meanwhile, work was thriving. My promotion turned out to be more than just a title. I was leading major projects, earning respect, and most importantly, financial stability. I poured myself into it, building a future that didn't depend on anyone's approval. Still, family ties have a way of tugging at you. Months later, I got an unexpected call from my aunt, my dad's younger sister. "I thought you should know," she said softly. "Your parents aren't doing well financially. The restaurant they invested in with Sophia's boyfriend is tanking. They've been borrowing money left and right. It's bad, Nat." My stomach dropped. My parents had always prided themselves on financial stability. For them to be borrowing left and right? That was unheard of. And yet, a part of me wasn't surprised. Sophia's boyfriend was charming, but I'd always suspected he was more talk than substance. Sure enough, 2 weeks later, I got the call I'd been expecting. It was my mom. "Nat," she said, her voice trembling with a sweetness I hadn't heard in years. "We'd love to see you. Maybe you could come by Sunday dinner? We could talk." I almost laughed. But after months of silence? But I went. Not out of longing, but out of curiosity. When I walked into the house, the air was thick with tension. Sophia was there, her perfect facade cracked. She looked pale, stressed, her nails bitten down to stubs. My dad was hunched at the table and my mom tried to smile, though it looked forced. "Nat," she said, rushing forward as if we'd never fought. "You look wonderful. Sit." I sat across from Sophia, who glared at me like I was the last person she wanted to see. My dad cleared his throat. "Listen, Natalie. We know things haven't been easy between us. But we're family. And family sticks together in hard times." I raised an eyebrow. "Hard times?" My mom wrung her hands. "The investment we made, it didn't pan out. We're facing foreclosure on the house. We were hoping," she hesitated, glancing at Sophia, then back at me, "you might be able to help. Just a loan. $50,000. We'd pay you back." There was the reason for the sudden warmth, the invitations, the fake smiles. I leaned back in my chair, studying their faces. Sophia wouldn't even meet my eyes. "You want me to bail you out?" I asked slowly. "Not bail us out," my dad said quickly. "Just help us. You're doing so well now, Natalie. We're proud of you." Proud? The word was a dagger. They hadn't been proud when I got my degree, when I got my first job, when I earned my promotion. But now that they needed money, suddenly they were proud. I smiled, but it wasn't warm. "Funny. When I needed you on my birthday, you were at the spa with Sophia. When I got promoted, you didn't even call. When I stopped showing up, you didn't notice. But now that you're in trouble, you remember I exist." My mom's face crumpled. "Nat, please. Don't be cruel. We're your parents." Sophia finally snapped. "For God's sake, Natalie, just do it. You've always been selfish. This is your chance to actually prove you care about family for once." The words hit me like ice water. Selfish? Me? The daughter who bent over backward for them only to be ignored time and again? I stood slowly, my chair scraping against the tile. "No," I said quietly. "I won't give you money. Not a loan, not a cent." Their faces twisted in shock. My dad looked like I'd slapped him. My mom whispered, "How could you?" I took a deep breath, my voice steady. "Because I finally learned my worth. And I won't pay for a seat at this table anymore." Then I walked out. The months that followed were brutal. For them, not me. The house went up for auction. Sophia moved back in temporarily, though I heard she left soon after, unwilling to live without luxuries. Their social circle shrank. Friends they used to brag to stopped inviting them over. Meanwhile, my life blossomed. I bought my own condo, hosted dinners with friends, traveled to places I'd only dreamed of. Ethan stayed in touch, sneaking visits and quietly thanking me for standing up when he couldn't. But the real reckoning came 2 years later. My parents had always been secretive about their will, but when my father passed away suddenly from a heart attack, the truth came out. The lawyer's office was tense. Sophia sat in a tight dress, her jaw clenched. My mom looked frail, clutching tissues. I sat quietly, Ethan beside me. The lawyer cleared his throat. "Robert and Linda Parker's will has been updated within the last year. The estate, what remains of it, is to be divided accordingly." Sophia straightened, ready to hear her windfall. But the lawyer continued, "To Sophia Parker, $1. The room went dead silent. Sophia gasped. "What? That's a mistake." The lawyer shook his head. "It's quite clear." He turned the page. "To Natalie Parker, the remainder of the estate, including property and financial accounts, valued at approximately $1.3 million. The air was sucked out of the room. I sat frozen, my breath catching in my throat. Ethan squeezed my hand under the table, his eyes wide. Sophia exploded. This is insane. She doesn't deserve it. I was the one who... The lawyer interrupted. Mr. and Mrs. Parker specified that Natalie was to inherit the estate for her independence, perseverance, and loyalty, even when the family failed to show her the same. My mom broke into sobs. Sophia shouted, her voice shrill, but I barely heard them. All I could hear was the echo of my father's words, written down for eternity. Even when the family failed to show her the same. For years I had been invisible. Forgotten. Ignored. And now in the end the truth was undeniable. I stood calm and steady while Sophia raged and my mom wept. This isn't revenge, I said softly, more to myself than anyone else. It's justice. In the weeks that followed, Sophia tried everything, pleading, threatening, even dragging my name through the mud on social media. But the will was airtight. My father had made sure of it. I sold the property, invested wisely, and donated a portion to causes I cared about. The rest I used to build a life I never thought possible. One evening, as I stood on the balcony of my condo, Ethan beside me watching the city lights twinkle, he asked, "Do you ever regret it?" Walking away. I thought about the lonely nights, the cruel words, the years of invisibility. Then I thought about the laughter of my friends, the peace I felt, the justice of the inheritance. No, I said firmly. I don't regret it at all. Because in the end I hadn't just survived. I had won. Life has a way of teaching lessons, sometimes in the hardest way possible. What do you think about this story? Let me know in the comments, and if you enjoyed it, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Revenge Bites for more powerful stories every week.